We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely immense.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim shit.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers take control of us now, and no one's talking about how they made us fight to be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds, who wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days. Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. We let you guys breathe a little bit. We didn't bombard you with episodes. We wanted that Marzinski episode to breathe. And if you haven't seen it, you got to go back and see it. But we're back now. And the nature of the things that we talk about on this show, right? The supernatural, the paranormal, the conspiratorial, we talk about them through the Christian lens, right? We've discovered that the Christian worldview actually does a really good job of explaining sort of the high strangeness and the high-level corruption that we're exposed to on the world stage. And so I'm really excited for today's episode because I feel like maybe, just maybe, I'll learn something. Because I have a lot of questions about Christianity, Catholicism, all these different things. And so hopefully we can unpack a little bit of that today, and maybe also go into some of the high strangeness. We are joined today by Buck Johnson of the Counterflow podcast. Buck, what's going on, brother? Can you tell the audience a little bit about what it is that you do and where they can find your work?
Yeah, I should start with, and I forgot to mention this off air because I noticed it the first time I watched y'all's episode, one of your episodes. I think we're the only two podcasts with a Vinny Pazienza, Vinny P intro song, because I have two. Yeah, and he's my favorite hip hop artist, and I love that song with the David Icke sample that you guys use as well.
I told you everything about this guy. Ever since I saw him, I just like fucking love Buck. Buck's the man. Go ahead.
That's
Buck.
awesome. That's kinship right there. All right, let's jump into it, Buck.
And it's funny because I want Vinny P on my show, but I'm scared to ask him because if he hears my intro, he's gonna be like, "Wait a sec, that's my song."
I thought about the same thing. I was like, I want to talk to this guy, but then he'd be like, "These motherfuckers, they haven't paid me for it."
Right?
Yeah, we'll do the whole show, and afterwards, he's gonna write us a bill.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, the show's called Counterflow Podcast. A long time ago, it was called Death to Tyrants, and there's been a bit of a direction shift over the years. Some on purpose, and some just follows my own life journey as that goes. And so I don't sit down and say, I'm doing a podcast about Orthodox Christianity and I'm going to get this person and that person. It's just that my life is turned towards that direction. So I find those topics interesting. I still cover some political topics as well, but usually it's some sort of spiritual warfare, even if you can use a current topic with that theme. And it's always looked at through an Orthodox lens as much as I can. I'm still fresh and new into the world of Orthodoxy, so I'm by no means an expert. And that's where it's at right now. It's anywhere you find a podcast, it's Counterflow Podcast is the show.
You know, Buck, I haven't listened to your show in a while. I forget the last one that I caught, but obviously from your Twitter, I was getting the sense that like he's leaning in the direction that I'm leaning. Because so for anyone that doesn't know, like all like the inside baseball libertarian party stuff, this is how I kind of came into this shitty world of Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that. But I met really cool people who were doing the same thing. Like Buck is getting in, and I'm drawing, and I think you had me do a couple of pieces for your thumbnails and stuff. And it's just like we're starting out together in this journey of like, you know, what is the state, this kind of stuff. And then COVID happens and everything turns sideways. We kind of go our separate directions, but somehow kind of come back here in the middle of it's interesting. It's interesting to see the people who haven't gotten that message from libertarianism, because as much as we could say we hate it, you know, or like the people, you know, the party and all this shit, I really am thankful for it, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to like develop the lens which I see the world now, and I probably wouldn't be thinking this way at least. So
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's no knock on people who still call themselves that by any means. It's, I still listen to Tom Woods and Dave Smith all the time. I think they're both great. For me, and probably yourself, certainly the Libertarian Party has no use anymore. And but libertarian as a label has no use for me personally. But I still have tendencies towards it. If you're talking strictly politics, typically I would lean that direction. It's just that I find strictly politics as a way to view yourself and society is kind of shallow, in my personal opinion. I think there's deeper levels, and sometimes they can manifest themselves politically, certainly. And I still love watching political shows and paying attention. It's just that when I talk to people and interview people, I prefer something slightly deeper than just the surface politics.
Yeah, the politics have become, they went from being like my lifeblood and
Yeah.
like really worried about it to like now it's my Netflix, because I still do pay attention, but I know it's entertainment.
What a good way to put it. Yeah, it is. I hope this doesn't hurt anyone's feelings. I was talking to my girlfriend
it.
last night, and she was like, "Have you ever noticed how libertarians love karaoke?" And I wonder why that is. And I said, I have noticed that. And I noticed it because I hate karaoke. So it stands out to me. And I said, well, it's funny because when you're in the Libertarian Party, you're pretending that you're in a real political party. And when you're doing karaoke, you're pretending like you're in a real band. So maybe there's some sort of LARPing kinship there. I don't know. And I'm sorry.
It's all the LARP.
Yeah,
You can
sorry
go
for those people listening.
3D printed guns and the vest. I'm like, I'm not doing all that. I mean, the 3D printing, yeah, but like, you know what I'm talking about? The next level, like 2A guys, where it's like you're in your fucking yard, man, and you're wearing like, bulletproof vests. It's like, what do you think is going on over here?
Yeah, it's I've done a lot of Libertarian Party meetings and whatnot over my adult life. It's something else, just not for me.
Yeah.
You guys said that you both kind of changed your course and ultimately came together, but it was around COVID, right? And so I think that was a really big moment for a lot of people. It was a wake up call, and you kind of you could take that wake up call in a couple of different directions. Some people saw it as like, oh, the government doesn't have our best interests, and is much more corrupt than we originally imagined. But I think for a lot of other people, there was this call to noticing that we're engaged in spiritual warfare, right? Buck, that was something that you mentioned earlier. And I think that seeing things through that lens, whether or not people want to admit it, makes a lot more sense. That government corruption at its highest levels is often, in my opinion, moved by a much darker force that people aren't aware of. And I think that when it comes to politics, a lot of the times, when you look at it, if politics is your focal point, you can almost pretend that other stuff doesn't exist, but you have to be real close to it. You got to bury your head in it in order to not notice all the other shit that's going on. But as soon as you pan out and you look at the bigger picture, you realize that there's something much more nefarious. And these days,
David, you know what's crazy?
Yes.
As you're describing this subsection of people, which I guess we're within that section, but then we've stepped out of it. I'm thinking about the larger section of people who are not even looking at politics. Like they're so out of it that they're not even looking at the distraction. It's crazy to think there's and 80% probably are like that. We're completely screwed.
And that's what's great about that is like, so, these things, they do go hand in hand. It's like the trope. It's become a trope now, even though it's not been long lived, but it's this idea of like every time something happens with Hunter Biden, well, you can almost guarantee that something's going to happen in the UFO world. Yeah, there's going to be some alien shit that happens, right? All of these things, they interconnect. And it's a little bit upsetting to me because I do think that some people that don't pull out of politics and they don't look around at other things, and that's their focal point, and this is one of these things that might hurt some feelings, but I think that's a type of coping mechanism, because if you zoom in on politics, you can see corruption that's manageable. You can do something about this level of corruption, right? And it's not until you zoom out and you realize that the forces that you're pitted up against are actually like these ancient adversarial forces that have been there since the dawn of time. And that is a monumental task to undergo as far as trying to dismantle it. And so when you zoom in on politics and you make that sort of your world, I I do feel at times that it's a sort of not a delusion, but like a coping mechanism. This is the
I,
enemy that I can handle.
Dave, you're kind of like opening my mind here because like the people in the Libertarian Party, I actually just had one scroll every so often they'll come through my comments like thinking like I'm the libertarian guy that they want to fight with. And I'm like, yo, I'm not that guy. Like I'm about to just like hail Hitler on you right now because you're annoying me. So this guy comes through, and what they all have in common is they're like atheist, right? Or like if they're not they're kind of atheist. They just won't admit to it. But in this game that they're playing, you're so obsessed with the political. It's almost like you better be obsessed with that, because if you do take that step back, then you're going to have to look at God or something else, and they will not. And I feel like did that contribute to your journey here, like where you kind of took a little bit of a step back?
Yep. It was with you mentioned Vin Armani earlier. He's the way he thinks and analyzes issues has always been fascinating and alluring to me. He's just an interesting man to listen to, and I became friends with him over 2020, and we spoke off air after I interviewed him. Maybe it was on air, actually, I can't remember. And he said, if you're looking at what's going on right now with the COVID stuff and the lockdowns and the possible medical interventions through the political and material lens, you've lost the entire picture. You're missing everything. That's not what this is. So focusing on like, well, this mandate by this governor and this and this and that and this rule and these bumbling idiots like Dr. Fauci, like you have to step back and look at the spiritual. This is good and evil. This is spiritual warfare. It's manifesting itself somewhat through this field of quote unquote science and medicine and government, but it's not strictly that. So to view it that way, you're missing the big picture and it's pointless. And so that got me thinking. I was already opened. I remember speaking to Jeff Deist of formerly of the Mises Institute once. And he said, you may not be a Christian, but you have to admit that's who you'd like. If you had your choice in a libertarian society, would you like to live around atheists or Christians? So that had already stuck in my mind. Obviously, the answer is Christians. And so I was already more sympathetic to the issue because I was a hardcore atheist. I was like proud of it, unfortunately. Wow. And that when Jeff told me that, it stuck with me. And then once I started stepping back and seeing the spiritual warfare aspect of it, I mean, just using that term, you have to understand, well, you can't be an atheist if you start to look at the good and evil behind all this. And it's not just human beings making mean decisions or bad mistakes or whatever. So yeah, that's opened my mind up. And then lo and behold, I discovered an Orthodox church in this. I live in a town of 13,000 people, probably 50 to 100 churches, but I'm in Texas. They're usually Catholic or Baptist or whatnot. And then boom, there's a Russian Orthodox church here. I couldn't believe it. Wow.
It must have been baffling for you, because like, I know for me, like my waking up into like, I mean, I guess my initial waking up into, wow, this is spiritual. And now you can't turn back. It was softened by the blow of like years of going to church as a kid and believing in God and still holding that faith, but not going to church. So I can imagine you were saying you were atheist, and then, oh my God, I'm going to put this cross up behind me.
Yes. I mean, yeah, that happened over a bit of a period of time, but yeah, it kind of blew my mind as well. And a guy reached out to me on Twitter and he said, I heard you say on Pete Quinones' show, I think that's who it was, is that you live in Lockhart. And I said, I do. And he said, well, I'd like to invite you to my church. It's an Orthodox church in Lockhart. And I was like, what? Who is this? I said, do you live here? Like, do you want to meet up for coffee or something? He's like, no, I'm about an hour and a half out, but you'll understand why I chose that church. And I said, weird. I've been driving by it, but I'm scared to go in because I look kind of different and I don't know the traditions or anything about it. And I said, I've been reading Father Seraphim Rose. And he's like, well, Father Seraphim Rose is my family's patron saint. He's on the wall in that church. These aren't coincidences that you've discovered all this. I can promise you. And I was like, whoa, okay. So yeah, it was through a series of it just kind of changing my lens, I suppose, removing scales from my eyes. And it kind of blew my mind, to be quite honest.
You see,
It's like
so this
synchronicities.
yeah, but this is
Correct.
the reason I invited Buck on, and I don't know, I forgot. Someone was like, Buck Johnson, he's any more political? I was like, no, I'm telling you. So as you're just saying that right there, like my question is, I grew up in a Pentecostal or like, I don't know, Assemblies of God church, and kind of have been going to that same type of church. It's very different from, let's say, the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church seems like it's very different from this Orthodox Christianity that you're talking about. I have so many questions. You said, this guy's my patron saint, his picture's on the wall. These things to me are like, it's almost a different religion. Please explain to me, because I know we believe the same stuff.
So I'll say this. Here's my experience. That's all I can give you, because I don't know a lot of. Being an atheist for 20-something years, I avoided church stuff. I just thought it was cringeworthy. Prior to that, in my teenage years, I did go to. You'll appreciate this. I did go to a mega church in San Antonio with where Pastor John Hagee, who is pretty much the most famous Zionist preacher in America, was my preacher. And so I knew that style of church, which was he yells a lot and literally a Bible beater, thumps his Bible, slaps it, yells, very fiery. And it was like a garish, almost like a White House type environment, like real white walls, columns, real pretty blue and red carpet. So that's all I knew. I didn't know anything about Catholic Church, but I had this mind in my mind. I pictured, once I went to the Orthodox Church, I thought, okay, I think this is what Catholic Church is too. No, it's not. I've since found out that it's not like that at all. My girlfriend grew up Catholic. She's a twin. Her and her twin grew up. I call it culturally Catholic, because there's a lot of, when you're in a Catholic area, it's just kind of the culture. And I would say even down in Texas, it's kind of a Protestant culture here. I did not know the services. I think a long time ago, they were similar to the Orthodox services, but it's not like that now at all. And I would dare say that the Catholic Church and the services are more in line with a Protestant kind of non-denominational evangelical service than they would be with Orthodox services. So that's what I would start with. Also, are you asking, like, what about the patron saint and the pictures on the wall and like?
I want to know everything about it. What is going on? Because I have no clue. It is one of those things. Okay. It's intimidating. Like if I did see this kind of a church, I don't know if I'd walk in, because I would be like, it's foreign. But I want to know. I want to know everything.
Okay. Well, quite literally, it is foreign. Let's I can break it down in simplistic terms, because that's all I know. I've only been into this 2 years or so. It's the religion, the church, the Christianity from the Bible in the book of Acts, as they're explaining how a church should be put together. They're referring, this is the Orthodox Church. It wasn't called that until later when it was split, and I'll get to that in a second. But so, for instance, the first Christian church on the planet was in Antioch, in the Antiochian Orthodox Church. It's still there. Peter from the Bible was the bishop. Peter that knew Christ was the bishop of that church. And so some of the early church fathers, one is called Saint Ignatius. He was a disciple of John from the Bible, not like a child, but John kind of trained him up in the church. And so these early figures, there's a one somewhere, I assume it's in the Middle East, I can't even remember where, it might be in Eastern Europe, where the last person to sit in this chair that they've got roped off was Paul from the Bible, St. Paul. And so it was Christ's earliest church, and it went along for a long time, hundreds of years. They put together the Bible at some point, of course, in the 3rd century or so, AD. And then in 1054, there were some issues leading up to this over the couple hundred years prior to it. But in 1054, officially, the Catholic Church became the Catholic Church and split off from the Christian church that had always existed, which was the Orthodox Church. So then there had to be two different names. Catholics became their thing. A lot of it centered around being having the Pope and Catholics thinking that he's above others, if that makes sense. I think they might use the term infallible, but I'm not positive. However, whatever the case may be, there's some other religious thing, a thing called the filioque. I don't want to talk over people's head, but there's a few minor differences that arose in Catholicism. So they split off. That was in 1054, and about 1500, people started questioning Catholicism. They started protesting Catholicism, and they became Protestants. And that started with Luther, I think somewhere around the 1500s. And then Protestantism started having all kinds of offshoots from that, because they were looking at the Catholic Church going, something's weird. This Pope, like, he's special above all the rest of us. That makes no sense. I agree with them. And so that's where that started. Orthodoxy was heavily in the Middle East, Antioch, Greece, and Russia. And they're just called jurisdictions. It's still the Orthodox Church. It's all the same. But there's obviously, of course, different languages. And so it's really, we call it the liturgy that served every Sunday with the Eucharist, which is communion. And it's the same liturgy from the 3rd or 4th century that St. John Chrysostom is the first one that wrote this, the one that we use today. He's got a great book, or there's a great book on him. Some of his homilies, top lobster, you would called St. John Chrysostom and the Jews, about his early homilies on Jewish people. It wasn't as friendly as the boomer evangelicals might make you think. And so we've done that same liturgy. If one of the saints from the year 300 AD came into my church today, other than a language difference, he would know exactly what was going on, because it has not changed.
That's a question I do have now that you kind of bring that up, because it's very important. So I did go to church this last Sunday. My kids sang in the church my parents go to, so I was there. And the first thing they do, and I'm noticing like crazy. The first thing they do is like, all right, everybody, let's put our hands down, and we're going to say a quick prayer for the health of Israel, and then we're going to pray for the service. And I was like, and
that's what
when
happened
he said
to me
that,
too.
My wife shot me such a look. I almost fell down. She was like, don't say anything. And I was like, so I had to raise my hand. Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Why?
Right.
What is the Orthodox Church stance on Israel, like their relationship with that? Because that's one of the worst things about the modern church that I know of today.
Yeah, because before you get into that, I would like to say, I want to share a quick story with you, Buck. Is I went to a church for the first time in my life recently. I only went once. It was an evangelical church. It was a sort of like a corporate big mega church kind of a deal. And they were saying a bunch of really wild stuff about basically it's terrible that these children are dying, but this is justified. And it was weird because before that happened, it was all like, all right, these songs are kind of cool, and the coffee's good, and they even got a breakfast place in the mega. This is nice. I'm not minding it. My kid was having a good time, and then they start getting into, well, the first thing that happened was a white chick with dreadlocks started. She's on the stage and she's singing songs. I'm like, this is a little bit weird, but hey, I don't know. This is all new to me. And
I
then the
went to a
next thing you know,
Hillsong concert. Jesus.
yeah, dude. And the next thing you know, they're going into that, and I go, I don't think we should come back. And I haven't been back there since. And so, yeah, that very much, a similar thing happening there with me.
So that's weird. I got this weird pop-up thing on my screen. Sorry. So there's no, as far as I know, I should also say this, I'm not a spokesman for the Orthodox Church in any way whatsoever. And I don't believe there's an quote unquote Orthodox position on Israel. Here's what I can tell you from my perspective as an Orthodox Christian. The state of Israel has nothing so the state of Israel, for one, has no right to exist. I don't believe any state, quote unquote, state has a right to exist. It's the Israel that exists today is not the same Israel from the Bible. Once Christ was resurrected, Judaism became, if you're not going to convert to Christianity, which a lot of them did, the ones that remained Jewish it's irrelevant. Like there's no point that it exists anymore. And they're literally anti-Christ because they're against Christ. They don't believe that Christ is a thing, or that he's part of the Trinity. They don't believe in the Trinity. And so they still think this Savior is coming back, or that hasn't come yet. It's like, no, he did come. It was Christ. They're against that. And I think, unfortunately, being, anti-Christ, it doesn't usually turn out that they're involved in like super great things, because that spirit of anti-Christ is prevalent. And the state of Israel has nothing to do with Christ, the Bible, or anything else. And so my position on it, some Orthodox people that have been on my show where we discuss it, most of the position is that you pray for the people in Israel, you pray for the people in Palestine. It sucks that they're fighting. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what it is.
But it's got nothing to do with us.
It's got nothing to do with us. And people like John Hagee and these pastors that are pushing this rapture narrative and this thing that it all goes down in Israel is so bad theologically. It's an inversion of what's really what should be happening. And so, they have a lot of money. They've got a lot of political power. John McCain, before he passed, was very close with John Hagee, this pastor I'm talking about. So that's the sort of circles they're running in. If that speaks to you, yeah, it's very dangerous, and it's unfortunate that too many people, like, I can't believe that they would have that. If you're going to pray for the people, I get it, but if you're praying for the state of Israel, I don't get it.
Yeah, what I started to piece together was this idea that it was like, because I'm new to this, I said I went for the first time, right? And so it's like, well, yeah, the evangelicals, obviously they believe in Christ, and the Jews of Israel, they are waiting for the first coming of their Messiah, whereas the evangelicals are like, no, this is actually the second coming of Christ.
Dude,
and so
it's important to note that not only are they waiting for the second coming of Christ, but their holy books, or at least one of their holy books, says that he's boiling in piss and excrement. So just a little asterisk to this story here. I know that you're bringing out Twitter, Lobster, but go ahead, man.
But yeah, so this idea that whatever Israel is doing is going to actually bring about the second coming of Christ. So in that way, the evangelicals are aligned with them, but only so that they can get to the finish line and be like, "Ha, see, it is Christ." And so by that ends, the means to get there is justified, which is like, hey, it sucks these kids are dying, but like this is all going to lead towards something pretty cool. And so that whole thing was really jarring, because I was on the outside of the Israel-Palestine thing. The way I was looking at it was like, I don't even understand enough of this shit for me to start throwing my hat in the ring one way or the other. And since I also don't understand Christianity enough, but I see it as an appropriate lens to see the world through, and so I'd like to go down that path. Well, now I'm suddenly presented with this conundrum again of like, oh shit, it's the Israel-Palestine thing, and not only that, but they're telling me what to think, and that's a little. I don't like that. I don't like. I'd rather come across this information and come up with my own ideas.
Yeah, that's not good. And in Orthodoxy, we have what's called a spiritual father, meaning like it's usually your priest. It's the person that kind of guides you, and if you need help or whatever through this life, they help you. Mine is not my priest, but it's nice to have two. He kind of, I have access to him, and it's this gentleman named Father Turbo Qualls who does a show called The Royal Path, and his
name is Turbo.
Yeah, it's a
hell yeah.
It's funny because his that was his nickname. He's an old punk rock guy, tattoo artist, and that was his nickname before he was an Orthodox priest. And when you get baptized into Orthodoxy, you take a saint's name for it, but you don't have to go by it all the time. But we all have our Baptist name and then our regular names. And his was already Turbo, and they found a Saint Turbo. His friend called him, was like, there's a Saint Turbo, right? And he's like, oh my God, you're kidding me.
That guy was hardcore, probably. Oh yeah.
That's the saint of running real fast.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got a show with Cyprian Venarmani called The Royal Path. And he specifically, I remember saving this clip, and he said, when you become Orthodox, there's a few things you got to absolutely cut. And the first one is you can't be a Zionist. That's massive. And if you are, it's not going to work.
I already like it.
Yeah. Once I heard that, I was like, whoa, I hadn't heard it phrased like that.
I'm hoping that this doesn't derail this too much, but I am really curious as somebody who you said you've been into this for 2 years before this, and still during, right? Politics is sort of your area of interest, and so I always wonder what people make of things like, we're having this thing where uh uh the church and state are crossing over in it's either Iowa or Idaho,
Oh
one of
yeah,
those
yeah.
I places that doesn't really exist, right?
It's
And in
Iowa.
their state building, there is a some sort
Oh,
of statue of like a Baphomet or something like that. The Church of Satan made sure to let me know personally today on Twitter that they have nothing to do with that. So I don't know. I guess that absolves them. But the statue is
So
erected,
wait up,
and
Satan told you that he didn't do it?
well, yeah,
Interesting.
that's right. And I don't know if anybody knows he's the father of lies. So, but no big deal. And so basically, what happens is a Christian. I don't know what his political position is, but he this is what the article says. He decapitates it, right? And so based, awesome, but
yeah.
there is always this bleeding over of religious or spiritual aspects into the world of politics, and I'm always really curious as to how people who are purely political square these things. Like, how does one square the idea that Hillary Clinton's emails leak and she's looking for Gilgamesh or Nimrod,
And the bodies of the
and
Nephilim.
the bodies of the buried Nephilim? How does one politically square that? Because we were hanging out with
Did
Clint
she
Russell,
say
and
that?
I yeah,
Yeah,
she did,
dude.
and
The
I'm waiting to
bodies
see
of the
Clint
Nephilim?
again.
Hillary mentioned that?
She says
Yes,
she's
she
looking
did.
for the grave of Gilgamesh, right? Or the burial site of
the
Gilgamesh
body of Gilgamesh and the buried Nephilim. I think that's how it was actually worded.
in an email. Maybe she's just asking for young children. I mean, or
Well, she's
Pizza.
also talking about sacrificing a chicken to Moloch, right? So you have repeatedly um, these references between Hillary Clinton and these very esoteric, especially when it comes to Gilgamesh, right? We're talking like the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, and then of course the buried Nephilim, right? The children, everybody knows the spiel. It's what the goddamn show's named after. But you have this over and over again, and I am very curious as to how one, because I want to shake down Clint next time I see him, and I'd be like, okay,
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
okay, I get it, right? But what do you have to say about the buried Nephilim? Like, how does one square that away? If you were Buck to do a little brain exercise, how might you have received that information? 3 years ago, if you saw that email, what would you? How
I
would
would
you
have
square that away?
I would have thought they're into some goofy, because when you're an atheist, or at least when I was, I would also dog on like satanic, I just thought Islam, Satanism, Christianity, I thought it was all goofy. And so I would have just said like, oh, she's into some stupid thing that's going to really affect how she's actually living because she's going along with this thing. But is Clint like a staunch atheist or something?
I don't
no,
think
you
he's
know
an
what?
atheist. He seems
So
to
when
be
we
like he's a
when we
bench
s-
sitter, dude.
when we started Tower Gang, I don't want to brag. He was an atheist, and so was Jose Galison. Now Jose, I've moved him up to agnostic. He's not sure. Clint
Good.
will tell you that there is a God, because I just I'll hammer the shit out of you, and I'll be funny about it. And if you're not funnier than me, then at that point it's gonna stick. So every week I'm just fucking at these guys. But Clint, Clint's still very much like that. It seems like a fence sitter, but like he's talking about this stuff. Can you believe they did this and this? Like, it's just Nephilim shit, man. And he's like,
Mhm.
3,000-year-old. This book, you guys reading it? I was like, oh
But
man.
he is willing. You know what I find to be more palatable for the atheist or the agnostic, right? The people that aren't too sure. And I was agnostic up until I had a demonic experience. I'm not going to get into it because it's a whole fucking thing. But I had an experience that really said, "Oh, I don't have the luxury of not knowing anymore." And
Yeah.
what is much more palatable, excuse me, palatable for people is this alien thing, which, by the way, is hand in hand with government and politics right now. And I mean, not politics, but certainly government, right? In the form of disclosure. It wasn't long ago that Mexico rolled out those sandcastle aliens and all these other things, and so now we're getting this blending of like very official narratives that are being presented to people, and also aliens. And that, for some reason, I feel like if we talked to Clint and said, Clint, what about the aliens? He'd go, yeah, man, it's probably aliens. And you go, no, they're not aliens, dude. They're the ancient adversaries of
Yeah.
mankind,
Yeah.
deceiving us once again.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things where I think there's a quote about You might not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. War is coming for you. You can look at it in this, and you can call it spiritual warfare. You might pretend that it's not there, or not even pretend, really have convinced yourself that it's not there. But for me personally, part of my podcast, even when it was just strictly libertarian, and I think libertarians will appreciate this, is always about digging for what's below the surface. I want the truth behind what they're telling us, this facade of politics, this show. What's really behind that? Well, if you keep looking further and further back, you do get to ancient spirituality and the first church and evil demons and good spirits, spiritual warfare behind this stuff. It's always been push and pull. So that's how I would look at that now with Hillary. Obviously, Hillary understands that, and that doesn't surprise me at all. And it doesn't surprise me that she's fascinated with things like that. I would suspect that she's probably very pro state of Israel, and I'm guessing anti-Christ is my, from judged on her history.
Have you heard the this idea that, and I don't know what I can get away with saying on YouTube, but this idea that the Star of David has nothing to do with the Star of David. Are you familiar with this? It's actually the Star of, in the King James version, it says that they worship Molech and have taken up the Star of Remphan as their sort of symbol to represent these things. And once again, that goes right back into the Hillary Clinton thing, right? Where it's like she's saying in her emails that she's going to sacrifice a chicken to Moloch, right? And that the state of Israel, the Jews of Israel believe that Christ is boiling in excrement. And right now, I would say in the overall zeitgeist of maybe the conspiracy realm, these ideas of Moloch and Baal and these child sacrificing deities are like at the forefront of everything. And then once again, it's like how that bleeds over into the political world. Well, you'd be surprised, actually. There's a lot. I mean, you think about Epstein's Island and all of the political blackmailing that was done there. And that island has, all the earmarks of being a temple and a temple related to all these deities. So it's really interesting.
Well, that's one of the levels, right? Like, I remember, man, probably 2018, if someone spoke about, because I was into conspiracy, but someone spoke about Epstein, most people would be like, psh, conspiracy. And just now, like a couple weeks ago, our big one that broke was the Pizzagate one, right? That one was, debunked. Look, the Washington Post said it's fake. And now everyone's just kind of like, yeah, Pizzagate. They're fucking kids, And you keep scratching there. And at the very bottom of that is kind of like what you found here, Buck, with this, and what I've noticed, with God, with the church, or at least like the spirituality. I'm not sold on the church yet. I'm still trying to figure out.
That goes back to, but we just talked about how the Vatican has erected a statue of Moloch in Vatican City, right? And that was happening in 2020, I think. But it goes back to what Buck was just saying, right? It's like, well, the libertarians, they want to know who's behind. They want to know the truth. Who's behind the government corruption? How are we being lied to on all these various levels? And you scratch and you scratch and you scratch. And maybe once you start to scratch the layer and you see a little bit of spirituality underneath it, some people back off and they go, I'm good right here, dude. I'm going to sit right here. But in anything, whether it's political corruption, grand conspiracy theory, once you start digging, man, you're going to find this as the baseline for everything. All things are predicated on this spiritual warfare. And if you're willing to go far enough, you're going to get there. Buck, Top was telling me, and I don't know if this is true, because he lies to me all the time. This idea that within Christian orthodoxy, you actually have to. There's something about exorcism. Are you exposed to the concept of exorcism, or how does that go?
Yes, when you have been going to a church and you say, I would like to get baptized here and become Orthodox, they say, okay, first you're going to be a catechumen. It's a period of about a year to a year and a half where you learn the traditions, you learn about it, because it's a lot. There is a lot of things to learn. When you become a catechumen, they do a ceremony over you, reading a series of prayers, and part of that is an exorcism. It's not like in the movies where you start shaking or something like that, but with those prayers said over you to become a catechumen. There is an exorcism. There's multiple exorcism prayers done. Now, there can also within the church, there are serious exorcisms that can be done. I actually had a guy on my show and he was Catholic. So this was in the Catholic Church. He's a priest and he's one of, I want to say, I don't know, it was a low number, 20 something maybe. And I think in the world, could have been America, or whatever the case is, there's not a lot of them that he's designated one of their exorcists. And he told me about all kinds of bizarre, crazy ones, that were like the movies. And he said the first one he went to with his mentor, the guy, he was basically studying and kind of like, you stand by, watch, here's how we do it. And the body was rising up like that of the lady. And he was like, wow, I'm getting myself into something crazy. But so there are those serious exorcisms done. But upon entering the catechumenate process, there's just exorcism prayers read over you.
Wow, that's really interesting, especially coming off the heels of the last interview that we did. Are you familiar with Jerry Marzinski?
I am not.
All right. He's a licensed psychotherapist who worked in the field for 30 years at the time when, psych wards were prevalent. And that's kind of where he started. And he tells a story of how he quickly went from reading what they tell you in college and like, this is what schizophrenia is, to, oh no, these are actually demons and entities.
Wow. Oh, I got to watch that episode. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you should probably interview the guy with somebody from the Orthodox Church, because I'd be, really excited to see what he thinks about that technique. Like, as we did our interview with him, we asked him about like, well, there's got to be a way. How do we get, how do we battle this? His idea, one of his main ideas, which is kind of interesting, is that none of our thoughts are actually our own. We're kind of like, or very few. We're like an antenna that will pick up what we're tuned to.
Yes.
And sometimes you get that sticky demon and you end up in a psych ward and they're telling you, they've split your mind in half.
Yes.
So yeah, one of the things he said is like, he never mentioned exorcism, but he said there's like frequency techniques. There's just the fact of noticing, instead of believing like I'm schizophrenic, this is a medical condition. Like, no, there are actually, two things that one sounds like me, but it's not me. It's leading me down a path of destruction constantly. Yes. And man,
I got to watch that episode, but it just triggered a memory from Father Turbo. My spiritual father told me, I think he told Mark Claire this too. He's been on Mark's show. When you hear the voice in your head say you, that's probably demonic. When it says I, think of it as something that could be more healthier, let's say. So if I'm sitting here bored or something and I hear a voice say, Buck, you should look at porn. You should look at porn. That's when you say, hold on. It's not me. That's not me thinking this. Just a simple exercise of once I heard it articulated that way, it's never left my mind. Like, that's a fascinating way to think about this, and just something to throw out there.
It's interesting. I'm thinking about Joe Biden now, where he's probably so old that he doesn't even have any of the dialogue. So they write it on an index card. They're like, you take your seat. It's like, oh no, that's the demon that's controlling your intern over there. She wrote that on an index.
Correct. Right. Yeah.
That's where America's at.
It is. And it's, he's to the point. Matt Erickson, who brought up briefly from Kingfield Show, he told me once, he's a very deep thinker like Vin is. And Matt told me once, there's people that if you say, hey, picture an apple, that they don't picture it in their head. And I was like, well, what do they do? And he's like, they're blank. And I'm like, what? That's what I think of when I see Joe Biden talk now. It's like, if you said, Mr. President, think about an apple, there would just be nothing there.
Just shit his pants.
Like, what's an apple?
Vice president, even more so, I would say.
It could be this overlap of like in America, like how Jerry was talking about, a lot of America's on SSRIs or antidepressants. That's kind of like blanketing a lot of maybe that inner voice or your ability to conceive of what an apple is. Even at like, some people can't see it at all. Some people see it as a rudimentary drawing, and then it goes all the way up to detail with light and shading and all that kind of shit like that. So yeah, but with the proliferation of SSRIs and the increase in, he was saying that like the increase in schizophrenia diagnosis is like way through the roof now. It's almost like everyone is schizophrenic, and because this is a spiritual battle, right? This is complete spiritual warfare. So either we blanket these people and turn them into NPCs with SSRIs and God knows what else,
right?
And then the other half of that is like literally just talking to demons.
Yes. And there's I did a show with a guy named David Patrick Harry, who's a really good Orthodox podcaster, and he's very good at taking common topics of the moment and explaining them through Orthodoxy. And he was kind of saying the NPC phenomenon are literally, we all are born in an image of Christ, and we have Christ, we call them in the Orthodox Church, Christ's energies, basically happiness, love, kindness, virtue. His energies can make us who we are and to good people, but without them, you're just basically an automaton with no real heart and soul in you. And that's what these NPCs actually are. As we all know this at this point, but it's just like, hey, take a jab. Okay, I take jab. Hey, put this sticker on your thing. I put sticker on. Like there's no humanity within them because they've lost Christ.
Yeah, we're doing this really fun thing in America, in Western culture, where it's like, we're throwing out the baby, the bathwater, like we're throwing it all out, and we think ourselves so intelligent, like we're so smug about it. You know what I mean? This like abandoning religion and spirituality, and concepts of God and trying to explain it all away. And it's like, as we're doing that, the overall mental and spiritual health of, you know, the general population is suffering immensely, and nobody wants to admit that there is a direct parallel to these things where it's like, you know, watch the mental health decline along with the belief in God decline. And when you talk to Jerry Marzinski, you know, like I said, he's been a clinical psychologist, or Top said it, for 30 years. And a lot of the times I'm hesitant, and certainly prior to talking to Jerry, I was hesitant, Top, to say like, you know, these are demons, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just felt.
It sounds like my mom. Like my mom would be like, "That's a demon in you, boy. Get that demon out your head." And I'm like, "She's crazy." But now I'm like, "Shit."
Dude, because it sounds. Not only does it sound unintelligent, and that's how far we've become programmed, right, as a society, but it also sounds dangerous. It's like, wait a second. These people have a medical issue, and to entertain the spiritual aspect of it is going to only damage them further, and it's going to put us back in the dark ages. So there was like almost this like not only shame for sounding stupid, but this like caution behind it for not wanting to, you know, destroy society at large. But after listening to him, 30 years of experience, I mean, what more do you need? He said 35, so it was 35, motherfucker. Do you need 40? Do you need 50 years of experience for somebody to come and tell you something of that nature? Like, this is an expert in the field. And one of the things that he said, that he used as a was Psalms 23. Mm-hmm. He said that he would use that very effectively, that these things would react. I don't know if he said it or somebody else, like worms on a frying pan.
He said that,
if you started to read that. And so, you know, it's just amazing that we have this arrogance about us. And it's the same, I believe it's the same arrogance that a lot of people who kind of poo-poo spirituality and poo-poo conspiracy theories, right? What do you think? You think there's a dark cabal that runs the world? That rhetoric, by the way, has run dry for the most part, because with the introduction of the deep state into everyone's vernacular, nobody says that anymore. Did you notice that? Because when I've been at this for a long time, and I was often met with, "Oh, who is it? Is it the Illuminati?" Like these tropes that were very Who is they?
That's the other one. That one is almost, as far as I'm concerned, is almost completely broken. Kanye's back. I don't know if you guys seen this. He's back, going wild.
On the top lobster rant.
Yeah. Oh. Somebody commented, "I wish I did." They quote tweeted it, and they said, "This was me at Thanksgiving, but it just didn't go over as well."
Yeah,
but yeah, me too.
Yes. Yeah, actually, me too. Yes. It's funny because we still use terminology in our vernacular that is similar. If someone's dealing with we always say, "Oh, he's got demons. He's got demons." Mm-hmm. But it's more rare to say, like you're saying, that's a deep. You know, if you say that's a demon. I did notice over the 2020 year that started to come out a little bit more, when you would see some of what we saw on TV and forcing people to do these things, I did start to slowly hear like, that's just a demon. We're seeing demons, so that's a good thing, right? That's progress, I would say. A lot of it's funny is the old atheist in me is like, how's that progress? But
You know
Going
that
backwards.
Vin Armani and like guys like Owen Benjamin, Vin Armani, Cyprian and Owen Benjamin are really good at things. Like one thing I noticed, not noticed, but like really convicted myself on the other day. I was thinking about alcoholism, and I was like, these are spirits. Like I walked by the store
Correct.
at Walmart,
Yep.
and I was like, oh, it's like, because before I've like a Vin Armani would have said this 5 years ago, and I'd be like,
Yep.
yeah, right on, and then just kind of go on my life. But now I'm like, I can't not see it anymore. It's like
Yep.
right in your face.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Have you all seen that? I'm sure you've seen that clip of that lady comedian kind of making fun of God and people that don't want to take the jab, and she just collapses.
Oh yeah.
That's
the
American
best.
society right now, like making fun of God, doing what we're told, teasing all of those idiots that don't like us, and then just like falling on your face. And it just that like she represents like just modern culture society to me when I see that.
Absolutely.
A lot of it too is this. I think we were only allowed to get to that point, right? Like I often say, comedians, since we're on the topic, you can get on stage and you could dunk on Christ like all day to like a resounding applause. You know what I mean? And you can build, especially back in the day, not so much now, because now it's what's the expression? Top like safe danger or safe dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, like back in the day, you could really like build a whole career off of getting on stage and saying the wildest shit about Christ. Now people still do it, and it's like, yeah, well, everybody's kind of it's old news to do that,
Yeah,
but you can't
right.
do that with like Muhammad. You're not getting
No.
on stage and doing a whole thing about Muhammad, right? There's so
No.
many things that people aren't, and I often look at that. It's like there's a flip side. All right, the people you're not supposed to criticize, those are the people that you really should scrutinize, right? Like you're not allowed to say anything. But I often look at the flip side of the coin, the people who you're allowed to viciously dunk on with no repercussions whatsoever and are even celebrated, culturally or societally celebrated
White
for doing
people
so.
and Christians. Yep.
Yes.
Right. So
Why?
I look at Christ and I'm like, why are you allowed to say whatever you want? And like, especially in American culture, you might even get put on a little pedestal. You might even get some money. You might get some paper for doing that. You know what I mean? You might get a huge following and become sort of a recognized person in the sphere of influence for doing that. But where are the people who are like regularly dunking on Muhammad? I don't see them on Netflix.
It's so safe dangerous when you really think about it in the end, because Christianity is such a beautiful religion that, like, yeah, you're going to mock Christ and God and everything else beyond that. You're going to fall right on your face, clack, hit your head on the stage, but still, you have a chance. It's not over for America. It's not.
No.
I'm just thinking of this now as we're doing this podcast. It's easy to get blackpilled, but it's not over for you. Even though you're a complete asshole right now, you can black out, but you can still get up.
Yep.
And you can still face the right way.
Yep.
There's time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you can. And as Christians, we would see that lady and pray for her. And I think there's probably some Muslims that would want her, if that was against Muhammad or something, they would want her head cut off.
Right.
It's the difference. Yeah.
I'm all about praying for her. But I am still going to have a laugh first.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, dude. I'm still going to have a laugh first. Like when I saw that lady, I couldn't believe, like, you just said, right, white people and Christians. The reason that I knew not to get the jab was from being a conspiracy theorist. And it was something that I learned was going to come to pass. 2006, 2007, I was learning about this. And this is from a bunch of different places, but one of the most iconic moments was like Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory, that show that he used to have. And he had this little lady on, and she's saying like, one day they're going to manufacture a virus and they're going to release it on the world. And the virus really isn't going to be that big of a deal, but it's the ensuing jab that's going to be a big issue, and they're going to force that on people, and it's going to really be a problem. And so for a long time when I was a kid, I was like, swine flu, is that it? No. Bird flu, is that it? No. It's, H1N1, the avian this and that, and the Zika virus, Ebola. There was an Ebola. I was waiting for it for so long, and it never came to pass. In fact, when the vid first popped off, I was actually in denial. I was like, dude, I've seen all these things come and go.
Right.
this is not going to be it. And
Yeah.
then sure enough, it ended up,
Ebola.
and I'm watching it unfold, and I was like,
Ebola
is
was
this
right
fucking
before
happening?
it. And I
Yeah,
remember
Ebola was
being
right before
freaked
it.
out. My wife was working in some medical facility, and I was freaked out about the Ebola thing. And then COVID happened, and I was like, fucking again? And then it
Yeah.
turns
I remember,
out,
like-
this is the real thing, guys. Everybody, like, they're doing it now.
Yep. I remember when I was like 2009, I was working at Longhorn Steakhouse. I think it was 2009, whatever it was. And I saw an Asian lady with a SARS, like a mask on. We called them SARS masks at the time because there was
Yes.
no other terminology associated with it. And I was like, she was walking around outside by Walmart and shit. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I thought it was it, man. But, it never came to pass. But the same time that I'm learning that is the same time, right? 2006, 2007, I'm coming to terms with, oh, the next big persecution is going to be white people and Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you couldn't have necessarily known that because this was, all through conspiracy theories. I'm just attached to YouTube back in the day when YouTube was still the wild, wild west. And I'm being inundated with all this schizophrenic information. And there's a bunch of different angles, but they're all saying the same thing. And you look at it now, and it's like, oh, we're like right there. I could
Mhm.
certainly see some dramatic increase in what you would call the persecution of white people and Christians. Like we're right. To
Well,
me, in my opinion, it feels like we're on the cusp of that.
it's happening in Ukraine. I don't know if y'all paid attention. I'm so glad Tucker's brought it up multiple times now on interviews. And I think even Vivek brought it up in one of his debates. So obviously we understand what Zelensky represents, and it's our State Department, all of these evil factions backing him up, and that's unfortunately like the war that our government's on the side of. They shut the original church in Ukraine, the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. They started kicking the monks out and shutting those churches down, putting the priests in prison. So
Whoa.
they are doing that with our money.
Oh man, that's the worst part. That's the kicker, right? We're funding that to the
Yes.
tune of billions of dollars.
Yes.
It's like these things start in certain places, like a test run. Can we do it here? And they're successful. So I'm not looking forward to 2024, whatever
It's
that
gonna be
brings.
wild. It's going to be wild.
Oh, boy.
I mean, it's going
Is
to be
that-
great for content, but it's
I
not going to
know.
be great, in any
Right.
other shape or form.
If we can make content, it will be great. If
Yes.
Yeah.
we're allowed to.
Make
Well, I
content
was
great again.
I was
Yeah.
talking to wait, I wasn't talking to anybody. This is all in my mind. I was talking to the demons now. So I was thinking about reaching out to you, Top, and saying, "Hey, what do we do in the event of an internet outage?" And I'm like, "Do we? Because look, man, it's been a long time coming. What I want to do is share information with people." And it genuinely feels good. And I'm sure, Buck, you can attest to that, right? It's like the things that you're sharing with people, you genuinely feel are pointing them in the right direction. I don't want that to stop. So I'm like, what do we do? Do we do like ham radio, like short, whatever the hell? Like, is that what happens? Do you, pick up a little bit of equipment here and there until like, all right, if shit hits the fan, I've got enough to
Good
get
idea.
a message out there? Because, yeah, look, somebody just said it, ham radio in the chat, the butcher. I think
I don't
that
know.
might be the way. And I think for
Ham radio
people that
pill.
are
Ham radio
Yeah.
pill. Get it.
there you go. Yeah. I think that there's something to that because I've been sitting on the sidelines, not participating vocally. I've always had crap that I was putting on my Instagram and social medias. Don't get the donut and the beer. Don't use that as the leverage to go and get the thing. Because while this was happening, I'm glad that I at least was one of the people that was vocal about it in the sense of like putting out information. I didn't have a show that was dedicated to it, but like I was putting out the studies that Dr. Robert Malone and Peter McCullough were talking about very early on in this thing. And so it's always been important to me. And now that we have a platform where we're, ideally helping people, I would hate for that to stop.
What's your Twitter? I got to make sure I follow you.
My Twitter is I did it real early and screwed it up. So it's David_Lee_Corbo.
Yeah. Real easy to find because there's no
Nerd.
Davids in the world. It's
I
actually
really messed that up.
this kind of topic really is what made me really love like the Pete Quinones
follow
type
each
of dudes. He's like, oh, he already follows you. He's like, yeah, you suck. I follow you already. But
Right, I think that happened earlier. Yeah.
This idea of like something happening like maybe a year or two ago, Pete Quinones was like drilling deep on what do we do when
Yeah.
shit hits the fan. And wow, it feels like an entire lifetime ago. But have you been up to anything like shoring up whatever you got to do?
You talking about me?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. I'll pay. Let's see. What's the best way to put this? I work for a fire department. I can't disclose which one because I'll get in trouble. But I've certainly been looking at retirement, what I need for that, what the future looks like, what could go wrong with that, crypto stuff versus dollars and these kind of that's the main stuff that I'm trying to get situated and squared away in the next 5 or 6 years, to make sure that if shit does hit the fan, I can still exist. And my church community here too is big. This is big in Orthodoxy, survivalist and this kind of stuff. So we have plans as well to get property that's pretty big, that can serve not only for church functions but for other things that if things were to go south. They also never closed during the lockdowns. My church never ever closed and refused to do so. We serve the communion. They call it the Eucharist. We call it it's a shared spoon. So everyone goes up. You get the blood and flesh and blood of Christ and take it. Never stopped sharing a spoon through COVID, because we believe that what you're taking is not symbolic, and there is absolutely no way that it would transfer disease to do that. It would, in fact, we believe that it would probably help you rather than in any sort of way harm you. So something else.
Yeah.
There might be something
Go ahead,
to it.
Tom.
Like before, it would be like, well, what does the science say? But now, like after doing all this investigation, where a lot of the things, a lot of these demonic encounters that people have described, literally just saying the name of Jesus Christ,
Yep.
they got to leave. And it doesn't matter what religion you are or what race you are or whatever. You
Yep.
say those words, and it's like, damn, all right, game over. Very legalistic, and I hate it. Very Jewish. Of this, like this world, this spiritual world to work that way, but the fact stands, right?
Well, what's that
Yes.
expression? We struggle with
Not
powers and
flesh.
principalities.
Yeah, that's my favorite Bible verse. It's Ephesians 6:12.
Yeah, it says as above, so below, right? I mean, we are a political people. It would only make sense that there are laws and politics essentially amongst, higher beings or beings in the spiritual realm. But, on this topic of preparation, we're in such a weird space right now. I think we've become used to the speed of the propaganda machine and how much we're inundated with like really high level disturbing crap on a regular basis, right? It's like over the weekend, I watched that film, right? The Obama propaganda film,
Oh,
Leave the
you
World
did?
Behind.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it is inundated with really alarming stuff because I don't even think you have to be a conspiracy theorist or conspiracy minded to feel like this movie is not a movie and it's talking to you. There is in hindsight, there is no real story. The ending is not an ending. It leaves you hanging. They didn't care about it.
Of
It
course.
feels like the point of the film was not to tell you anything about what was going on,
Right.
what was happening. The film is just filled with some speculation as to like why these events are unfolding. Nothing is ever confirmed. And it truly is somehow still a very good movie. I don't want to give away any spoilers because Buck, you haven't seen it?
No.
And Top, I know you haven't watched it yet either. You have to watch it because it'll give you. I literally I was watching it and I said to Top during it. I said, if the grid goes down, I'm coming to your house because I don't know anybody in Florida and I have family out here, but they're all like kind of gangbangers. They don't have anything going on for them. So I'm like, no, I can't.
Well, they might have
I gotta go
weapons
to
for
Top.
you.
Yeah, no, I don't know about even that. I think they're all empty. But so that hits, and then right after it is this preview for this film, Civil War, which is
Yes.
another really big one right now.
Yeah.
And these two events, countless people have connected them together because I'll give it to them. It feels uncanny. It feels like we were presented with these two things. And right now at the forefront of a lot of people's minds is this sort of preparedness. And one of the strange things, I don't know, Buck, if you saw this, Top, I know you saw me post about it, was that in the background of the film, this is very strange because I don't watch movies like a normal person anymore. I haven't for
Right.
16 years. I watch them as like these, Where's Waldo kind of experiments where I'm just looking in the background for things. And so in the film, there is this moment where CNN is playing in the background, and
Of
there's
course it is.
outages. Yeah, of course. There's outages that everybody's experiencing, and they're mapped out on a grid over the United States, represented by varying shades of red. Darker the red, the more intense the issue is. The lighter the red, and then ultimately white is not an issue. So hidden within this grid of white and dark red is a QR code, and the QR code is positioned over Kentucky, over a military base, I believe, in Kentucky. And if you scan the QR code, it brings you to a abandoned amusement park, not a website for an official amusement park, rather a website dedicated to the fact that this is a spooky and abandoned amusement park that was built on an
shit.
Indian burial ground. It's haunted. Whatever all that means, I don't know.
That's literally
And that's
America.
where- It's literally, yeah, exactly.
It's an amusement
But that's
park
where
built on an Indian grave.
Yeah.
And we're all going around on the roller coasters, but that's where it ends. I haven't found any more to the trail. I don't know what any of that means, but like, it certainly evokes this feeling of unease at the minimum. Like, what the hell does this mean? The whole thing feels like a message, in my opinion, to like, it's coming sooner than later. People who are in the know, hey, this is for you. And people who are really in the know, the QR code is for them. Like, that QR code and the fact that it's positioned over a military base, somebody, in my opinion, has probably seen that, and they're like, all right, just
right.
before election, it's time to go in the bunker. You know what I mean? Like, somebody's got that information. Yes. The whole thing felt like a coded message. And then, like I said, now we're going on to the Civil War movie. Yes. And it all just feels like it's talking about things to come.
Yes. And I notice I got to go pretty soon here. I got to actually do an interview in a few minutes, but I wanted to point this out. They mentioned in that preview for Civil War something about the Republic of Texas or Texas going rogue or something about my state. I can't remember how they phrase it, but
I believe
funny
they said you guys teamed up with California.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I found it interesting because Texas secession is now going to be on the Republican primary ballot when we vote here for the next election. It's only on the Republican one, and it's the secession amendment is basically saying if it passes on that, it will be on a statewide ballot for Texas to leave the union. And it was like, that's funny timing. Just as this starts ramping up, this movie comes out and it's basically like, look, here's what's going to happen if you try to leave. It's what it felt like to me.
Oh man, that's completely disturbing.
Yeah.
Before you go, I want to ask you, there's a Greek Orthodox church around the corner from me, and I've expressed to you, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, dude. Do you recommend?
Yes, 100%. Where are you in Florida?
I'm in Port Richey. It's on the West Coast. Are they going to be speaking Greek? This has been my No,
not usually. I will say the Greeks, out of all the jurisdictions, have more of a reputation for a little bit of the in-group preference than others. But I've never been to an Greek Orthodox church. I just know, I've just been around now a little bit and kind of get that vibe. I have a friend in Florida that goes to a Greek Orthodox church, and I can't remember where she's at. She's kind of an ex-libertarian type, but she loves it. So I would definitely recommend. Here's what I would do. This is for anyone listening. Here's what I did, and it helped. I emailed the website of the church and said, hey, I've been thinking about coming in. What should I avoid, or what should I wear? Do I have to dress? Something kind of generic that just lets them know you're interested. And they immediately wrote back and, oh, come on in. Yeah. Et cetera, et cetera. I got there. They recognized this guy is new, so they came up and talked to me. It was great. And at the time I felt a little awkward. Like, I don't want my politics to get out because they're going to think I'm crazy. And they just went right into like, yeah, I heard your podcast. And yeah, no one hates communists more than the Orthodox. And I was like, oh, okay, we're good.
This is it's such a hard sell. Such a hard sell, man.
Yeah. And so
Right?
when he said
Nobody
that, I
hates
was like,
communists more. You
that's
can't be a
exactly,
Zionist.
yeah. My priest literally said, no one hates communists more than we do. And I was like, he goes, I mean, they tried to destroy the Orthodox Church in Russia. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. So yeah, it was nice.
Good.
It was a nice welcome. I was in, I felt comfortable.
Maybe
I
that's the
got
move then. Maybe I'll drag my family out there.
You know what? I might go to. I'm gonna look around me and see what's up now, because it's been years that I've been in the church and I just don't. It doesn't vibe with me. Something about it doesn't vibe, and a lot of the things you're mentioning are the things that I don't like. I should be in church by all accounts, but I don't go. It's a conscious decision. So, but listen, Buck, I don't want to take any more of your time.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Go and do your interview. I'll message you a little bit later. Just tell the people again where they can find you. And Raven, you want to stick around for a couple more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
On Twitter at Buck Rebel, BuckRebel. And let's see, counterflowpodcast.com is the website. YouTube has my channel, Counterflow Podcast with Buck Johnson, Rumble, Odyssey, all of those things. And they drop every Tuesday night. They're always an interview about an hour long. And we cover a variety of religious, conspiracy, political, cultural topics. It's always fun. So thank you guys for having me here.
As I said, the gold standard of podcast hosting. Thank you, Buck. Thank you for gracing us.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Good to hang with you guys. We'll talk soon.
All right,
Thank
man.
you, brother. It was a pleasure. Have a good one.
All right.
Okay. So, David, what do you think about the episode? What do you think about that?
I mean, I've been like, all right, so after the Marzinski episode, it's very clear to me, in my opinion, that we're on the right path. And I told that story briefly about going to the evangelical church and having that experience that was like honestly jarring and weird, dude. Like I felt like I've always had my feelings that the church was compromised and that you didn't necessarily have to go to a physical location in order to follow Christ. That being said, it's like this plays a big focal point in my worldview. And so I want to like pursue it in a way that's not just here, not just through conversation. Although I do think this is like really important and probably is more in the correct direction than we might want to believe that it is, just having these conversations and stuff. So if I can go to the Orthodox Church, and it's just really interesting too, because he came from strictly politics and also being atheist. And so for that, man, I'm always like, that's a win, because strictly politics is just a different way of saying atheist, like in my opinion, almost the same thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like you've zeroed in on this one aspect of life and you think that this is the key. Whereas in my opinion, you zoom out and spiritual warfare encompasses all aspects of life, politics and everything. I mean, everything, where it's like, if you're just looking at politics, you're sterilized and you're away from everything else. And although it's kind of bleeding into other things, right, like culture and media and stuff like that, I think that the real target is spiritual warfare, because politics is wrapped up in that too. And so I thought it was a great episode, and I think that it's really cool to hear a guy like that who, obviously very intelligent, as people who, in my opinion, I know you might have a disagreement. I want to be, there you go, the butcher, man. I want to be religious so bad. I just can't. My mind doesn't allow me to. It's the demons in your mind. No, I'm just playing.
You demon, get those demons out. Yeah, no, I agree. It's one of those things where it's like hard for me. It's like, damn, so I can't say the N word anymore if that's going to be the case. I'm not even so, I'm not so sure.
That's true.
I think that's true. I think that's actually the Orthodox Church says that. No, they encourage. No, they don't say that. I got no idea. One of the things that really kind of opened my eyes is like he's like, oh, his church bought land, and they have like a backup plan. So that's like a community. The church that my parents go to, they're giving their money to Israel. You know what I mean? It's like these guys ain't playing around. I feel like it deserves at least that I at least check it out and see what is going on there.
Dude, you should do it and I'll do it, and we'll fucking compare and contrast notes, because there's one that's right around the corner from me, and like, you know, I do like all that. This idea of like fuck communism, fuck Zionism, and also like, yeah, this preparedness aspect, like absolutely. That would be very cool. And I don't know, I just I can see all of the positive aspects. Like if you can find a good church, well, then you do have like a sense of community, and you are also learning. Like I want to learn. And to be honest, dude, like there's just something, I'm retarded, and trying to read the Bible for me is honestly like trying to read anything else. I just can't read. All right, guys, I'm like illiterate or some shit. Like I can read, and I'm a great orator too. No, great is a stretch, but I'm a decent orator. I can read a thing and say it out loud. Hopefully you catch it, because I can't absorb anything I just said. Like I can't absorb anything I just read. I have to read a thing like 15 times over. So I've got to be much more like hands-on with things. And so like it would serve me very well to go to a church. And also, like I said, the community aspect of it for my family and everything, it would be dope if I could just find one that wasn't like, hey, these kids, they had to die, dude. It's just what it is. Like they had to die. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck, bro? Like I was like,
I feel like so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna actually have this pre-recorded eventually, and then we're gonna have ad reads. But I feel like I did an ad read of like Christianity, but I'm almost sold on it. Like not just the community aspect, but like as we talk about like what we're doing specifically here, like the last episode, the previous episode, and how the world is moving. I'm like, we're gonna do something, man, because it's not looking good, and putting your faith in Donald Trump is a bad idea. Putting your faith in Q, probably a worse idea. Putting your faith in Elon Musk, like people, I don't know. Start to look deeper. I don't want to sound like my dad, but really start to look deeper, because it's getting very strange out there. And I feel like we're coming on that time of Noah stuff where, the beast will be released. I don't know, dude.
Look at JC. This episode of Nephilim Death Squad was brought to you by the blood of Christ. Dude,
that's our new sponsor.
Said it during the show.
Jesus Christ, our new sponsor. What's up?
That's right. Every episode is brought to you by Jesus Christ. I had an experience.
Yo, that's actually great. We
should start doing that shit.
Sponsored by Jesus Christ. Yeah.
And look, I'm about it too. Is like, can we be part of the mechanism that makes Christianity not cringe? Like, can we do that? Because I think that, like, that's what Buck was saying is like, yeah, is a church. That's what Buck was saying though, is like, it looks cringe. And like, dude, I agree. Yeah, it does look cringe. Like, I thought it was cringe for a long time, and that's like, I never threw it out entirely, mainly because it was never like forced on me. Like nobody was ever like, you're going to church. And so I always had like a pretty good feeling about it, but I would say like there is like a cringe aspect. I would love to be part of like any mechanism that like, let's dive into this and let's see that it's, because I don't think it is, especially when you start going like down the Nephilim, Genesis 6, the flood, like these entities. Like I had an experience and I called on Christ, and I don't give a damn what anybody else says, because modern cringe Christianity is a psyop. Agreed. I agree. It's part of that same thing that lets you get on stage and dunk on Christ and not have any repercussions.
It's the spirit of isn't that weird? And it's almost, I feel bad almost saying it, but it is like a spirit of the Antichrist, because in a sense, like any sensible person that isn't going to, again, I don't want, whatever, I'm going to shit on these people. I'm going to finish this thought. But like, you're going to a church for whatever reason. It's like, part of it is like so performative, and it just seems, not just performative, but just seems strange. That's why you perceive it as cringe a lot of the time. There's varying levels. Yeah. I mean, you went to a mega church, so that's like peak cringe. Then there's very smaller cringe. And there's like weird things that go on. Like there's tons of different things, but maybe I got to go to this Orthodox church, and if I'm there and it feels real, I have a very good idea of when somebody's being real with you. Not just doing this thing. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but that's what it feels like in most churches. Like we're all participating in this thing. What is this thing? But it's like, is it Christ?
And the theatrics of it.
This theatrics. There's like, it's not Christ. Because I used to go to a church, and after we would be like, all right, now it's time to fellowship, and we all go to a diner. And the shit these people were talking about, I was like, I hate these people. I don't want to be next to them. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
you got to love your brothers in Christ. I'm like, but they're not. They're not like me.
I don't know you. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
do
other thing
know
too.
them,
Is I
but they're not
don't
like
like
me.
being disarmed. I don't like being like you have to accept these. I'm very closed. Like that's just how I am. I've always kept a really small circle. I don't do well in like not that I don't do well, but like I don't have much of a desire, especially like to be part of a group all of a sudden. I've never adhered to any sort of um political party. I've never said like I'm Democrat, Republican, any of that shit. I've never done it. I've just never been part of a group. And every time you drop me into part of a group, and I notice like at the evangelical thing, right? It's like, oh, we're all together. Like we don't have to know anything about each other. We're automatically together. I could see if you were enthusiastic about having me into the fold, and it was like, let's get to know this guy, and he can get to know us. It was like by proxy of being in this building, you're one of us, and I'm like, no, I'm not, dude. I don't even fucking know you. Like I like the cafe and shit, and I'm down with that. And some of the songs slapped a little bit, but like I'm not just one of you immediately by showing up. I never done I can't
A lot
drop
of it,
nuance.
a lot of it is the message too. So like, even the most hardcore preachers, like in a general church that you'll see, like in a mega church, they're up there and they're speaking from the Bible, so they're speaking the truth, but they're not really like getting to the very bottom of it. You know, like I feel like on this show we get to the bottom of it better than they do in most churches because everything is so intertwined. Like you can talk to these people on like a daily, like just give them the daily example. Pull up the newspaper and show them exactly how this relates to what's going on. It's like,
Right.
and then if you do believe that, then be like, oh no, now you're my brother. Yeah, like if we're here in the same mindset that this is a spiritual battle, there's two sides or maybe who knows how many. I mean, that's actually something I want to explore, how many sides there are. And let's announce it now. January 11th, where are we at? Tony Merkel. Tony Merkel is going to be on the show. So we're gonna go deep. And when do we have another big guest to announce, right? December 28th.
Here. Who do we book for 28th?
December 28th, LA Marzulli.
L.A. Marzinski, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at that. L.A. Marzinski. They've
Yeah.
formed into
Wow.
one dude. L.A. Marzulli is coming on the 28th. That's going to be super dope. And then, we have Tony coming on. And with the Tony conversation, I think he thinks it's going to be about the Nephilim. But in reality, we've kind of pivoted. And when are we having Sam on? I don't know. I don't
know. We're going to be on Tinfoil Hat January 24th. With a Tower Gang member that remains to be named. So we'll be on with Sam.
Figured that out. I think that we should probably explain to people what's about to happen too, even though we don't fucking quite know what's about to happen. It's like, guys, you're listening in the live right now. And I do think that Top and I are going to. Lots of good things have happened for Nephilim Death Squad. And in order for us to enact them in the particulars of sponsors, we can't stop the show to organically plug a sponsor in because Top and I, our main concern is a good content and a good conversation, and we're not going to stop the flow of the conversation to fucking do an ad read. So I think this is probably going to be maybe the last one that we do live. And from now on, these things are going to be pre-recorded. We are going to and tell me if this is premature, you think, Top, but to make an effort to still do a live show for you guys, we're going to be doing Neph to America, which is strictly going to be me and Top. With no guests, maybe not strictly. I could see every once in a while doing something, but for the most part, and no. But to the butcher, it's such a bummer.
It's good.
I feel bad.
It's good that we get the feedback. See, here we go. I agree. Conspiracy extremists.
Pre-recording is for the.
Here's
gays,
my. Yes. So we're actually getting comments from Twitter too, which is cool. That happened today, but
that's because I don't know if you noticed. I tweeted at fucking Elon, and I was like, "Fix the comments." I swear to you, I did that today. I shit you not, and then all of a sudden now it's fixed. So I got fucking pulled. What can I say?
So what I'd like to do, like the compromise, is like still do a live show, and either have it like behind like for members only or something like that, or a live show that just airs on like Rumble, and then when it's done being live, it's done. No one else can see it. We'll re-release it as an edited version. I don't know. I mean, we'd like to get so if we're able to generate obviously more money, then we're able to take the show more seriously and do more shit like that. So maybe like a Patreon thing, like I don't know, maybe a Patreon tier where you'll get all the live chats, but I also don't want to have like, like cut the fans in half, because they show up and they make the show fun too. Like every time I peek over, we're talking to Jerry Marzinski and these guys are saying some wild shit. It's even more entertaining for me.
It is. I love the interaction of the fan. Honestly, we're torn, right? Because it's like, from a technical standpoint too, or a logistic standpoint, guys, it's like, if hundreds and hundreds, let's say we get big enough and thousands of people are tuning into the lives, then
I don't want to hear from
thousands
them.
of people. Well, not only do I want to hear from them, but thousands of people.
No, I don't. I don't want to hear from them. I only want to hear from the guys who are here first, the most entertaining dudes, the loyal, like the loyal group. The rest of them could watch from the outside, like the bunch of plebes and latecomers that they are. That's how I feel about that.
But the logistical side that actually is kind of a negative, and really this is all fucking behind the curtain shit, is that if thousands of people tune into our lives and we then do ad reads in the edited version, that's thousands of people that are not going to tune back in for the edited version of the show and thereby are not going to hear the ads, and we're going to be selling our sponsors short. So there's a lot to think about. But I do think that bringing back Neph to America could be a lot of
nothing at all, really.
Did a fucking ad read.
We just can't, even when there's no guests, we can't seem to do an ad read. But our advertisers are really cool. Like the ones, we have like a food supply company. We have a freaking
Parasite Cleanse.
Parasite Cleanse company. We have on my monitor over there, we have Rife Technologies, who we've never plugged because it's just super hard to stop the show. And then we've got honestly at the bottom, even though I love them, but at the bottom of like for the conspiracy, like we have razors. So you can shave your neck beard in between cleansing these parasitic demons and stocking food for your family later. And I mean, and if you get sick during the apocalypse, you just turn on this Rife machine, which I actually did hook up. And it's really cool. I did, yeah.
I haven't hooked mine up. I'm too fucking retarded.
We have, but as you know, we've had this. What episode is this? 17 or something like that? I don't even know. I stopped writing up there.
We've had this shit since
episode 2, and we've never plugged it. It's the craziest shit because we just love doing the show. We want to move, but then it's like at the end we're like, oh fuck, we didn't say like. How do we make money? We're idiots, right?
I want to thank people though. Like, look, these are good problems to have. The show is moving so fast because you guys love the show, and obviously this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for the way that they receive it. And so honestly, we're crushing in that regard. We have to recalibrate and figure out how we're going to do this. I still do think Neph to America would be the shit. I'd love to bring it back. I think.
Hold on. What an idiot JC is. We can still chat during the pre-recorded premieres. It's like, yeah, but I can't do this, JC. Jesus. Oh my God. Hi, JC.
Well, JC just likes talking with the homies in the chat. Like I
think that's what it is.
That's fucking cool. You know what
JC
I mean?
Doesn't even watch the show. She's just like, oh my God.
He just talks in the chat. It's like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about right now. So there's a lot to figure out, but maybe we will. Maybe we'll make the lives exclusively Rumble. I don't know. And then even an announcement on my end.
Exclusively Twitter. Now that we could do Twitter.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Honestly, that's going to change things. That's something we hadn't considered. We were talking about it just yesterday, the day before that, and now this is just happening today. And for those of you who listen to the Ravens Watch, there's not going to be any more guests on the Ravens Watch. The Ravens Watch is literally going to be me interacting with the chat and breaking down topics like this.
Oh, the Ravens Watch broke up?
Well, it's because why am I going to – there's only one dude. Why would I it's so hard booking guests for this show and guests for that show. You know what I mean? Like it's a whole lot. So I figure why even split the guest?
We got to go into Tower Gang lore here. I have no idea.
Do we know if JC is a dude?
I think a lot of people think. He sent me
a picture of a dick once. I don't know if it was his.
Really?
No.
Where did he send that? Like he didn't enter into Cocktober? What the fuck, JC?
He was like, I don't want to compete, but I do want you to see it.
Yeah, so maybe the Twitter thing would be good. I don't know. Yeah.
It would be great. And well, I think Twitter would be great for Neph to America. All right. For those of you who don't know what Neph to America is, because
what we're doing right now.
It's literally this. Yeah, it's just me and Top, and typically we'll come armed with some videos and some topics, and we'll tear it apart. Um, and so that's a lot of fun, dude. I love doing that shit, and I think that that really lends itself uh, to chat interaction. And so, there's definitely a lot of incentive to do that. If we made Neff to America exclusively a Twitter show, I think we would crush there because we're both doing, a lot of fun things on Twitter. And everybody kind of already knows what we're all about on Twitter. So I think that would be great. But a lot of stuff to think about. This is the closest, by the way, that Top and I have had to like a business meeting.
We seem to do these things live. Business meeting, everybody line up. We don't know what we're doing. Fuck it, we're doing Neff to America. So this is what's going on here.
The more you dig into that and talk to people with actual knowledge of it, again, that's another story where there are some, fanciful ideas floating around that are just, there's no evidence that they're true. But if you talk to people who, have actual knowledge of it that they gathered themselves, there are parts of that story that I do not understand at all that are really, really, really dark. It's so dark that I, haven't told my wife about it. I mean, I haven't verified any of this, but this is not just stuff that I read on the internet. I know you all are very, very grounded in that story, so I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff there that's just like, man, I'm not even sure what that means. There's a spiritual component there that I don't fully understand. So yes, that story bothers me. And I think, last thing I'll say, that one of the reasons that we've had all these disclosures and all of these, 10 whistleblowers at this point, and it hasn't really become front page news. Part of it's suppression. Parts of the government don't want you to know about it, but part of it is the public can't deal with it. It's too far out. The implications are too profound. And I understand that. Because I've heard things where I'm just like, oh man, I don't even really want to know that, honestly.
Deeply disturbing stuff. Forget like saucers and technology. It's deeply disturbing stuff that I haven't even told Natalie. Yep. I agree with you. It's so disturbing. Exactly. I can't even tell my kids. My kids ask me different stories about it, and I won't say it because it's so dark. It's so dark.
I totally agree.
Miles is watching. So.
Okay, Miles, if you're watching the show, Daddy's not going to tell you about that part of the UFO stuff and what's going on with the government.
Can I say one thing? They've known clearly. I mean, this is, I think, established, and I feel comfortable saying this as fact. The U.S. government, I mean, these are real, whatever they are. They're not human. And the government has known that for a long time, possibly going back to the 1930s at least. And, of course, there's tons of evidence in the written record, in the physical record, in paintings, and in literature, that people have been seeing and interacting with these things for a long time. So we know that. But the justification one often hears is, well, the government, various presidents who have been read in, not all have been, haven't wanted to disclose this because it would scare people. And I've always thought that's bullshit. You're hiding a crime, which they are, by the way, in my opinion. But I do think there's a sense in which that's not totally crazy. Like, there is some stuff, if it's true, and I'm kind of thinking it may be true, that's so radical that, well, as we both said, we don't want to tell the people we love most about it because, like, why would you, disturb someone like that? So I kind of get that. I hate to admit it. I'm not arguing for hiding things. I believe in the truth and I believe in disclosure, but I understand the impulse. Like, holy smokes, this is heavy. You know what I mean?
And the government's involvement in it makes it even heavier because then you realize the complicity.
Exactly.
That's like a really good rejoinder to kind of what we were just talking about there. It's coming off the heels of the 7-foot aliens in Peru, the face snatchers, the other 9-foot aliens in Las Vegas, the Mexican ones, the tiny Mexican ones they wheeled out. It's
I like how the Mexican ones are tiny too. Like, so are the Mexicans.
They're like, that tracks. Just put out some small ones, like little ones. Put a sombrero on them.
Corona in their hand.
All this stuff is coming out. And they're also talking about like the disgusting nature of it if it is government complicity. And that part, that's why I reached out to LA, because one of his new things, besides the Nephilim, which I'd like to talk with him about, but his new thing is the cattle mutilation and what this actually is, and not just cattle mutilation, but people mutilation. Like, there's accounts of this happening to people. Timothy Alberino says that there are multiple. In not just in not in America. I'm pretty sure he's talking about like South America. Multiple abductions and mutilations of people that he's heard of, and these are people in jungles. So they're not really like as technological as we are to the outside
really
world.
People, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not really, exactly. So take him, cut him up with the fucking laser. Who cares? Throw the pieces back. Take the blood. Yeah. But they're doing this shit to people. It's probably like easier to get away with when there's no, there's not going to be cameras around as much. There's not going to be like a Jewish media, not like an entire internet focus on any crazy thing. This story will get out there, but when people have heard this story about the face
peelers,
yeah, they've heard this shit, and they just kind of like, oh, that's crazy, but it's somewhere in like Peru, like, okay.
When I see this shit, like this is right off of Roseanne Barr and Tucker both talking about the Nephilim, right? And when I see Tucker talking about anything, look, I personally think we're in the middle of. I was telling you this off air. I side with Donnie Darkin on this. This idea that we're being exposed to this left hand path, right hand path shit. We're about to see a play being acted out on stage where the old cabal or the old cult of Moloch, what the fuck ever, is about to be overthrown by these would-be heroes, right? Albert Pike being this 33rd degree Mason. In the book of Morals and Dogma, he's quoted as saying, "When the people need a hero, we shall provide one." So when I see the triumphant return of Alex Jones, who I'm a big fan of, and I see him team up with Andrew Tate and Elon Musk, and Elon Musk has that whole body of conspiracy theory behind him, the Iron Man archetype. I see this as a very clear painting of like who the good guys are. So you have your Musks and your Jones, you have your Tuckers, right, who wears his little red Kabbalah bracelet, and then you have like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and these terrible characters, Hillary Clinton, this evil bitch. They're definitively evil, and these are definitively the good guys. And whenever I see shit playing out that's too Hollywood-esque, I always fucking start doing a bunch of squinting. So when I see Tucker and he's doing, George Soros, thank you, Butcher, that's another one, classic, clear-cut bad guy, right?
Yeah.
When I see Tucker, he's doing his thing, and he's alluding to the nature of these things. And at one point during that interview, he even says, you can go back and you'll see in ancient paintings images of UFOs and things of that nature. And so right there, he touches it. He touches it for a brief moment, the ancient nature of these beings. Now, I just want to say that we are so much better than Tucker Carlson, because here we are. We believe that the people are not weak of constitution to the point where they can't take this information. I don't think we've ever pulled a punch. I fucking believe that these are all variations of deriving from this fucking the fallen, the Nephilim, the hybrids they created, this demigod situation, as the Bible calls them, the heroes of what is it? The heroes of old, men of renown, right? And so I think all of this is where this stems from. And I think right now there is this really big deception being pushed to kind of make you believe that these are some highly advanced creatures from another, planet with highly advanced technology, and they're going to come and save us from our own stupidity. We're going to blow up our own planet, pollute it to no end, and kill each other in a nuclear war, and they're going to stop that. I'm not saying that's exactly how it's going to pan out, but that's kind of the painting that's been created surrounding these things. So when I see Tucker playing this ball game, I already think he's cabal. You know what I mean? I already think he's an actor, and I like
because
Tucker.
We know
this is the same thing as
we know the reality, right? The reality is that no, they're actually ancient Nephilim beings or Nephilim hybrids, and they're preparing for war. They're creating their own hybrids. This is what I mean. Just to give away what LA is going to do here. I mean, guys.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna. Yeah, it's It sounded like a black pill when I heard him talking about it, but I'm not black pilled on it because I kind of you know what happens in the end, but
right.
Yeah, but tough times ahead for sure. They're creating an army, which is why Colin's story. If you guys haven't seen Colin's story, go back 2 episodes. Super interesting. Especially in contrast with Marzinski, like you've basically got one side that is constantly doing the same behaviors, and it's always negative, spiraling you to a negative. Then we have this story in Colin, which I've never heard anywhere, where he's not doing a negative. He's going in the opposite direction. So that's like, it goes to show like there is a battle happening. There's a battle forming. They're getting ready for war. They're upgrading for war. They're recruiting.
And even in the case of Colin, it doesn't necessarily mean that those entities that he's dealing with are like the end all be all good guys, but they do seem to lean more towards good than like there's a definitive difference between what he's experiencing versus what other people are experiencing. But for the Marzinski thing, this plays into, that aspect, right? This war. And one of the things that he said on Tony's show that I thought was really interesting, and what did he say? Black pills are 13% of the pills, but 60% of the depression. Yes, and those are real statistics. And
wrong show, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, if you guys want to make end towers, make them Nephilim, please.
It's the same thing. They're literally
it's the same exact thing. Yeah. But one of the things that Marzinski is going to talk about, and is really interesting, is this idea that these entities, when they take people, there is a hybridization program that they're running. They're trying to have babies with, human beings, which go fucking figure. They have been since they made the Nephilim, right? But in the beginning, they were like these the babies, the offspring of these, aliens and human beings. In the 90s were sort of like just fucked up looking. And they had stringy blonde hair and giant bulbous eyes and little tiny features. And then they started to get a little bit better. So in the 2000s, you started to eventually have the black-eyed children, which were much more closely resembling human beings, but they still did have like these big black eyes, but they weren't horrifying and off-putting. So when you would hear abductions experiences and people would recant seeing children, this is how they would describe them. Now, 2023, a lot of people who are having these experiences where they're seeing entities that they would regard as children, and that the impression that they get is that they're mixed between, us and them, they're almost spot on. So they have seemingly been working on perfecting the formula of, creating this alien-human hybrid, but alien,
it's not there yet.
I don't give a shit. It's not there yet. And also,
we got that motherfucker's not real girl, right? So
yeah, she knew some shit apparently. I don't know what's up with that bitch. But throw away that fucking term. All right, I don't even like using the fucking word alien around these parts because they're doing the same thing. It's the same thing. They fell from heaven. Barzinski, he's gonna come on, he's gonna crush. But Top, we gotta wrap this up and do fucking ad reads, or try to.
Yeah. All right, guys. Listen, thank you. We're gonna throw an outro in here just to save us the editing. But thank you for showing up again. We'll see you in a week or so, in a couple days.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade people that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you got them. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening. And they have.